All right, I'm ready. Good evening. This is the Mount Diablo Unified School District joint meeting with the Martinez City Council School Liaison Committee. And we'll go ahead and call it to order by each of us just going around and saying our name. I'm Deborah Mason, the Vice President of the Mount Diablo School Board.
Kaisha Nseli, trustee.
Adam Clark, Superintendent.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Satender Malhi, Council Member for City of Martinez, District 3, home of Hidden Valley Elementary.
Brianne Zorn, Mayor, City of Martinez.
Mike Chandler, the City Manager, City of Martinez.
Joe Inke, Public Works Director, City of Martinez.
Okay. And as most people know, we always start our meetings with the land acknowledgement. So we recognize that the Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Confederated Villages of Lishan, the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay Miwok and Northern Yokot, the successors of the Sovereign Verona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the Mount Diablo Unified School community, it is vitally important that we are not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize that the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of the Mount Diablo Unified School District and broader Bay Area communities today. Having said that, do we... First item would be public comment. The public may only address the subcommittee regarding the items listed on this agenda. Is there any public comment? No public comment? Okay. So we'll go.
I think you have one.
Oh, come on.
She'll give you a card to fill out afterwards. Or, yeah. Three minutes.
You turn on your mic. Yeah, on the mic, there's a button. There, it's green.
Live.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm a parent of two kids at Hidden Valley Elementary School. They've been going there for a few years now. Our council member, Satinder Mali, invited me to come. I've been engaging with him and some of the other city staff over the last couple of years on a number of topics. I'm sure some of these you've heard maybe from the principal, maybe from some of the other staff. I've been a member of the Parent Faculty Site Council at the school, so I've been engaging with some of the teachers and Principal Tosi. Great staff, by the way. Like, we love everybody there. Our kids have had a great experience so far. I will say there's two topics. I know one of them is directly being commented on tonight, and that's safety around the school. If you've ever been over there during rush hour, I know every school has a lot of traffic. We have a particular stretch of road where people pick up a lot of speed. We've seen it firsthand with crosswalks, even with guards there, people blowing through intersections. I think we're one of the larger schools in the district, is my understanding. So because the school is embedded right in the neighborhood, we have a lot of folks walking and biking there, which is great. But we've had a lot of situations where there's been traffic concerns. I don't know if there's one perfect solution for everything here. There's a lot of signage. I think there's some speed mitigation that would be helpful that the city has explored. And I think there's some plans to implement, but we'd like to just reiterate that as parents and people in the community there that it's a great asset to have that school there. And we have a beautiful park next to it. So the safer we can make it for folks just to walk over and experience the school and the park, it would be great. On that note, we also want to make sure our kids are getting as much outdoor time as possible. And I know this may have come up in the past, but there's a large grass field that's there next to the school. My understanding is the school district has some ownership over it, but the city has been maintaining it. For such a large school, our students don't have grass time on a daily basis. There's a lot of blacktop and 800 plus kids, and there's not a lot of space for them to get outside. And again, we have a beautiful environment. So our hope is, as parents and when we're on the site council working with the district to potentially get that open. I know there's some back and forth with the city on how that actually could be implemented. But our hope is that we can get the city and the district to work together on a plan. If it's as simple as just getting fencing up, that would be great. If it's more complicated than that, that would be, you know, you've got the community support. We've got a lot of parents who want this that I've spoken to, both on the pedestrian safety and the field access. So if we can increase just, I guess, a cleaner environment for kids to play outside and get to school and back home safely, we'd be much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let me grab that.
Okay, any other comments? Nope. All righty. We'll go on with our first topic, safe routes to school.
Good evening. My name is Joe Enke, Public Works Director for City of Martinez. I want to give you a brief update on some of the traffic safety items going on in the City of Martinez. Nope. Nope. There we go. All right. So, little background, the city adopted a local road safety plan in March of 2024. The intent of the safety plan is to use data-driven approaches to enhance the city safety of city streets, improve transportation safety by reducing the number of incidents and the severity, identify high-speed areas and stakeholder priorities, and establish a vision and goals, and to review potential solutions and countermeasures and prioritize implementation of traffic safety. Some of the recent improvements that we've that being said, we have been able to implement several improvements in the immediate vicinity of Hidden Valley Elementary. We've installed curb ramps on Glacier and Spring Lake and Glacier and Eagle Lake Drive, where there's previously no curb ramps. At the Center Glacier intersection, we've installed new ladder style high visibility crosswalks, the flashing feedback signs at the stop signs on Center, a new curb island to protect pedestrians as they step off the curb crossing Center. With the recent paving and subsequent striping, we've installed a buffered bike lane on Center between Center to Center between Glacier and Redwood. And we've at Redwood, we've installed a rectangular rapid flashing beacon as pictured in the image over there, and coming soon is a speed feedback sign opposite the Hidden Valley Park underneath the PG&E towers. So with the completion of the local road safety plan, it allowed us to apply for some additional funding through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. And we're awarded that grant to develop a vulnerable road user safety plan. It supplements the LRSP, but this one is focused on the vulnerable users, which are bicycle and pedestrians. The city retained Advanced Mobility Group, or AMG, to prepare the plan. So some of their first steps is to build on the data collected in the LSRP, extend some community outreach, in particular around the various schools in both the school districts. And one of the steps is to develop a map of suggested routes for walking and biking to school. So one of the handouts, and I distributed copies on your table in front of you, is we typically start about it with a half-mile radius around the school, and that's what's been found a kind of the typical walking and biking distance around schools. So we want to get feedback if there's any areas of concern, any specific intersections or streets or anything like that surrounding the school. And on this one in particular is we wanted to look at Spring Lake Drive, and that's one of the residential streets was closed off probably, I don't know, close to 30 years ago. It's right across from the street from the elementary, and it's kind of forces the cars to come in Glacier, go through the school parking lot and back out, and basically keeps them out of the neighborhood, but it does complicate some of the circulation around the school. So I want to get some of your feedback or thoughts on possibly opening that either full-time or part-time and so forth. As we go through the data collection and feedback with the schools, ultimately we want to identify particular streets or intersections, and AMG will develop some conceptual plans. Here's an example of one of some striping and some other improvements that could be done. And, we can use that to either get some additional grants for funding that, or depending on the scope of the work, maybe something that we could fund with our existing roadway and traffic safety budget. That's just and I'm not even sure which, that would be a proposed one on this plan.
Hey, Joe.
It's not in Martinez.
Yeah, you did not make this clear. This is a example conceptual
of a
plan from the contractor we hired, and it has nothing to do with anything that is really in Martinez.
Just
Yeah.
a level of detail would be provided.
Right. So now that I've confused that plan, to open up for questions. And again, if you have any immediate thoughts on the map, and you want to get out your pen and mark them up, I'd be happy to take them. We will be working with the elementary school principal and vice principal and distributing some information so we can garner some feedback from the people that are kind of the boots on the ground out in the field.
There's a gate where it's kind of a park, and they have it closed during the day, but there is parking back there for the park, right?
So that's Hidden Valley Park?
It must be.
Yes.
It's right behind Hidden Valley School, so it makes
Yes.
sense. So is there a separate road that leads to that?
That's through the parking lot of Hidden Valley Park.
Okay,
it's-
so you go into the park to get
Yes.
to access that.
So, and that's at the Redwood Drive intersection. Redwood Drive is across it, and then it enters into the parking lot. I think 20 some odd years ago, we worked with the developer when they developed that those townhomes at where this shopping center used to be. They helped fund that parking lot expansion, and it's to help offset some of the drop off and pickup parking. Sorry.
Oh, my daughter would have lost a point in her presentation for starting with verbal clutter. I'm like, she has practiced a speech. Anyway, it's been a second since I've been a parent at Hidden Valley, and it was the Wild West then. And I appreciate the engineering solutions that are proposed. I don't have any ideas outside of what you've proposed, but I know that the last time that we met together, which was more than a year ago, I don't remember which year it was, but it was at Hidden Valley, and we had discussed like how we need to change also adult behavior around this. And I remember it's like everyone, I don't know what time Hidden Valley starts now, but when I went there, I think it was 8 o'clock. Yeah, 8 o'clock. And which is really early, really early. But so then the problem is everyone's getting there at like 7:50, let's say. And a hard solution is getting fewer people coming all at the same time and start getting more people to come earlier. But then I know that's a matter of is there adult supervision there earlier? Like we can't get there at 7:15. That's ridiculous. But I'm just bringing that up just as a reminder that we don't have control over the streets and things. That's your control, but that the parents and the administration and the teachers, the community that has to arrive each morning and has to pick up each afternoon, can work on their own behavior as well, which helps improve pedestrian safety and bicyclist safety.
I'll just say I've spent lots of time out at Hidden Valley. I've been there this year for morning drop off. I always, when I go, I park on the north side of Glacier, and then I walk in. Obviously, Center is the big street. And I know when we met last time, there was a lot of issues of people speeding and things of that nature. There were crossing guards out there, and I thanked all of them individually because they were awesome. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. Just really watching as families are crossing that street. They were crossing both Center Street coming north to south of Glacier, but then also crossing Center Street, folks who walked up Center and need to cross Glacier and then get on the side of the street that the school is located. So I sat and watched that, or I stood and watched that. And then I also went over to the park area, and many families were walking their kids down from the park. And then also seeing the folks who want to drop off and on the school campus, driving past the school and then looping up in the back of the school there and then exiting. It is a lot of people. It's not an ideal place for a drop off. Just like you said, you kind of go in there and you're stuck, right? It's a dead end. There's no outlets. There's no outlets back there. So I have saw it with my own eyes this year. And again, I mean, I know our staff is well aware of it, of what's going on up there, and tries to work as best we can. I know, we have to lock the gate going back to the park. The thing with the field, I'll have to look into that and get some more information on that, but I think that's something that we can definitely discuss. But the big issue is that I see is Center Street, and I'm just not sure if I'm sure opening that other street would obviously offer relief to many of those dropping off, picking up, things that it's obviously going to cause heartache for those neighbors, at least during those windows of pick up and drop off time. But my map, I mean, I'm not as familiar with the area to see if you do go down that street where it will let you off at, where it outlets at. But
I can imagine,
Yeah.
well, one, I can imagine the neighbors would be very upset if it got opened.
Spring Lake.
Yeah. But it would make sense to come on Center Street, drop off and leave, like everyone leaves on Spring Lake. But it's a very residential street, and my recollection is that it's kind of narrow too. Like it's not as big and wide as obviously a Center, because that's a big old.
Looking at the map.
Yeah.
It's narrow going down.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to reiterate what Joe said, which was just that you've got this little map. So we're not necessarily looking for the solutions, but if you know, and particularly being a former parent there, if you know that there's intersections or specific places that were just a total mess, circle those, because what we're looking for to come out of this vulnerability assessment is for us to hand to AMG, the consultant, this is a pain point for everyone, and then they're going to look through it and see if they can come up with solutions for us. So we don't necessarily have to give solutions, but we definitely can be the most beneficial by offering those problems. And I think that it's worth us identifying, if I'll just throw out there, if the dead end is the problem, then maybe we can look at making center more drop off friendly, just those kinds of things. But by all means, please mark up the piece of paper. We can even give it to the parents if the parents want to do this. And then, Joe, it's our expectation that we will, as part of this process, we will be having town halls. Like he said, he will be reaching out to the principals and the teachers early on, but there will be town halls and opportunities for the public to provide input at a later date as well. So you get first bite at the apple with this little map here.
Thank you very much. And if I can just quickly add on, just to provide a little bit of context. So even before I was initially appointed to the council, actually on the night of, this was an issue that came up. And it's been a top priority of mine. And I want to recognize and thank the mayor and the city staff and the district, because really a lot of the progress that we have made is because it's been in partnership, of us all working together. But we still have issues out there, and that's partly why I think we are where we are, and we want to continue to further improve. I want to shout out Tyler. He's been very, very much focused on this and has not been shy about letting me know where we can further improve. And so I appreciate your continued advocacy and for taking the time to be out here tonight. With respect to Spring Lake, you are correct. It would likely generate a lot of heartburn for those residents. And I understand. I wasn't privy to the circumstances that, in terms of how that public street ended up being bifurcated. It was done, as Joe mentioned, long before any of us were here. But it is something that some folks have approached me about. And in fact, I think we ended up taking a little field trip down there during one of our site visits, actually, with our chief of police and our director of public works and our city manager. And it is a little jarring if you don't have familiarity with that, just to see this gate like randomly in the middle of a public street. And one of the things that I hope will come out of this process is AMG will be able to look and see at how the feasibility, if you will, of opening that up would be. If it's not a total opening, is there a way that it could be temporarily opened up and closed during school drop off and pickup hours, and then closed for the remainder? That could potentially, I don't know, just throwing it out there. But these are the types of things that I think we need to evaluate to see how we can relieve those pressure points around there. So, but I appreciated, we've, like, as Joe mentioned in the presentation, we have taken some steps to try and make it more safe. And I would also want to shout out our PD, who has actually stepped up enforcement around that area as well, which I think has been noticed and has been making a difference. But to your point earlier, it's interesting is that, we get the complaints, but then, some of the worst actors in all of this are tragic, unfortunately, some of the parents themselves. And so it's like, that education piece in terms of, hey, just leaving your house 5 minutes sooner will make a lot of difference, and we're all going to get there. And I want to shout out Principal Tosi. She's done a really good job, and they've got a pretty, like you said, pretty well-oiled machine there in terms of the school drop off and pick up. But it's like, how can we make that better? So, yeah, thank you.
And if I can, I just number one, I want to thank the parent who came and spoke, and your message carries the words of, I'm sure, many parents, and we didn't need 50 parents to come and say the exact same thing. So we will take that as if 50 parents came tonight.
Trust me, they come and see me.
Okay, all right, good, good. But also, with what Trustee Nzewi mentioned, I also am, I visit every school. I felt that there is a concerted effort on the side of the parents there to use like alternative means. Like there were lots of parents walking down from the park. There were lots of parents walking into school. Even so much, there's a little book, a little toy exchange, little thing. I don't know what's that called. Yeah, a little knick-knack trading, but like that's there's so much foot traffic on that area that was set up and stuff. So obviously this is a huge topic for that community, and I'm seeing that there are efforts on the city. There have been great improvements to that street and intersections, the markings, the crosswalks, all those things over the years. I think since our last meeting, there's been improvements, and then also those behaviors which really helped the most. But the question I had is at the end of Hidden Valley, at the end of I don't have my glasses on, and that's why I'm trying to blow this up. Glacier.
Yeah.
There's a road. Is that a road or a walking path at the very end that goes down Hawk Meadow Lane or Loop, or it may not be on that map, but it's on Google Maps.
I believe what you're talking about is a trail that ends up going into that side of Hidden Valley Park. But actually, that's a good prompt for the question that I had, which was you made a comment about keeping the gate closed between school and the park. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Is that a pain point? Is that something that you said that parents walk down from the park? Is there somewhere else that
No.
parents can be directed to park, and should that gate stay open?
No.
Is there a better?
We just, I just know over the years, there's been, when you have a public park and then you have a school, we always want to keep that closed during school hours. We want we want the parents to use it, but during the day, we got to make sure that it's locked so that if we have people who are at the park, drinking or things like that, that are not wandering down to the school site to use the bathroom. So, any of our schools that have that, it's either into the administrators' duties for that day, or the custodians will open and close that. Sometimes we run into problems if we have a substitute custodian or someone who maybe doesn't lock it or maybe doesn't unlock it, then it creates an issue.
But that pathway should be open before and after school. Is that the expectation so people can get to? Because I know when we did our tour there, there is a pathway down.
Yeah.
It's the way I describe it is the baseball field parking lot, and there is a pathway with a gate. So is that gate open so parents can go that way
In
as
the
well?
morning, yes. I
Okay.
was there. I witnessed it. I stood there with lots of parents as they
Mhm.
walked through,
Mhm.
dropped their students off, and then
came back.
walked back.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the next thing on the agenda is going to be talking about 501 Contra Costa and the alternative walk and roll programs, and so just making sure that we're identifying other routes to school, and if we can park a little bit further away and walk or ride our bikes in, that's always ideal. But like we've all said, it's a dead end street. So it kind of pushes where that alternative stopping place might be a little bit further, I think, than probably your average elementary school. But it's important for us to identify that. And I don't know if the I don't know if you've ever talked with the principal about it and whether or not they want people in the park at drop off and if they're okay with that. There's a lot of parking spaces for that 15-20 minute period, but I don't know if that's an ideal alternative recommendation.
Can I just quickly also ask our colleagues at the district? I know that in nearby cities, I'm thinking Pleasant Hill, for instance, there have been some traffic safety improvements in and around the school sites. just curious, in terms of what your take on some of those improvements, have they been well received by the school sites and the parents there? Are some things working, some things maybe not? Are there some lessons to be gleaned? Because we had gotten some, I'd gotten some feedback that perhaps maybe it didn't, some of those improvements maybe did not pan out as intended. They might have been in a pilot phase, and some of the early feedback is that maybe it's not quite working out the way that it was intended. So I was just kind of curious um, what you all hear from, because I know Mount Diablo is a very large school district. You cover several cities, right? And so maybe some, in terms of best practices, what do you feel is working around those school sites, and maybe some things that maybe we can perhaps incorporate around Hidden Valley?
One thing we did in Bay Point, where I live, there's 3 schools within a mile, 2 elementaries and a middle school. So we ask our local sheriffs in the morning when they're not on a call just to cruise, because they're kind of in a circle. And that makes the parents behave so much better when the sheriff they're not in a hurry, they're not double parking. So that is something we've tried that's been effective. And then it'll look good, they'll ease off. And then when it starts ramping up, we'll tell them time to kind of make yourself known around the schools. So that's a simple thing. It's not a total solution, but it will kind of make the parents a little more alert about how fast they're driving and how they're parking, and making sure they don't open the door and tell their kid to run across the street, which I've seen parents do. So that's a small thing that we've been able to do. So.
Yeah, and just a couple things. Pleasant Hill used to provide crossing guards at several of their schools, and then the city moved away from that, so there are no more crossing guards out there. And so that might be there. There still might be some of the after effects of having crossing guards and then not. So that might be some of the voices of concern from folks saying that maybe it's not working out that great. But what we've seen, and I know Concord has done this a lot, the lighted crosswalks, the lighted stop signs, that illuminates when folks pull up. Those those have been they don't replace a parent crossing their child or having an administrator out there, but they are added improvements. I'm not saying that there's been people coming and in public comments thanking us or thanking the city or saying how great that is, but I know that as I visit schools and I see those, that they are very they're very pronounced as you pull up into them, and they're in front of most of our Concord schools. And I know Pleasant Hill's been doing a lot of stuff with bike lanes, making those curbs. It's not like just a painted bike lane, but an enclosed curb. And some people feel either way on that. Some people appreciate it and some people don't, because it really does cut down the space, the width of the streets.
So from Hidden Valley, you then go to Valley View and College Park. So the 4-way stop that no longer has crossing guards now has the Las Vegas stop sign. It's lit up during the school hours, during the school morning and the school afternoon. And then these ginormous speed bumps, for lack of a better word, like you could never, your car would be dead if you were to go over it, because it's super duper wide, and it's so experiencing it. And this is for middle school, so I don't know what they've done around the elementary schools, but this is middle school and high school, and then DVC all right there. I felt like it is more than good enough. The students they're in a stream, they never let a car go, so it's not, the car can't go anywhere, especially in the after school, when everyone's coming out at the same time, and parents park away. If the parents are picking up, they do park away, but so all the students are walking. But you have to stop, and so it's felt, I haven't missed the crossing guard except for them as a person, like as a human. But I feel like it's been good. The only other one, the one between, there's a crosswalk So a lot of parents drop their students off at DVC. And so there's this very small crosswalk. Is it only one or two? That goes between DVC and Valley View. I think that's just, yeah. Well, it's goes from DVC to between Valley View and College Park. So everyone's taking that crosswalk. It's not as all lit up and stuff, but the traffic is so slow because they're turning into Valley View or trying to go to College Park. You can't speed during either times. And then now DVC is back in session, like for real, for real. They're in person. It seems like 100% because this was just it's been 5 years and suddenly the traffic is pretty spectacular. The difference from March 2020 to now August when they came back to school, completely in person because they had been substantially hybrid. So yeah, no one can go anywhere. No one can go fast. your high schoolers and middle schoolers, your soon to be high schoolers, middle schoolers and high schoolers from Hidden Valley are good.
That's good to know, and I appreciate. To close this out, I appreciate getting those touch points. I mean, I think one of the challenges that we have, like on Center, for instance, is that I've always said, it's like, well, why can't we just throw some speed bumps and some rumble strips on there? And then we hear from some of our public safety friends that those are not ideal in a particularly a major thoroughfare like Center, but they could make sense on some of the side streets, right? Like Glacier or Redwood or some of those other streets, Spring Lake, right? So those are the things that we kind of need to kind of think about, and I trust that the consultant team will kind of lay those options out for us. But um, it is something that I have been kind of keenly sort of following to see what are some of the best practices that could perhaps be incorporated, looking to some of our neighboring cities. And I know both Pleasant Hill and Lafayette have taken some significant steps in recent years to try and improve traffic safety in and around their school sites. And so hopefully we can kind of pick up on some of those best practices. And I mean, when we're looking at this, I think it's important to understand that we're trying to look at this from a holistic standpoint for the entire city. And that's really what the aim of this process is. It's not site specific per se, but given that Hidden Valley is the only elementary school in the city that is in the school district, that's kind of what brings us here. So that's why we have a particular focus here. So thank you. It might be John Sweat.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
That one's a mess of a drop-off school too. Yeah. It's beautiful on the site, but getting to it is a mess. So don't emulate that one. And like I said, you don't need to come with solutions, just identify problems. That'll be just as helpful. Yeah.
But do reach out to the parent faculty club. I know that they have been very engaged on this, and so we want to hear from the administration, the staff, and the parents as well. So we'd like to get that all input from all three stakeholders. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Kara DeYoung. I met you kind of at a open meeting. We were together recently. I am from Street Smarts and 511. We're the same group. I'm just checking. Nope. We're the same group, but we provide pedestrian and bicycle safety assemblies to all of the Mount Diablo Unified Elementary Schools. And this is paid for through taxes from all the different cities. And last year, we rolled out a pilot program to also paid for by taxes in the 5 cities of Walnut Creek, Clayton, Pleasant Hill, Concord, and Martinez to start a weekly walk and roll program. So, walk and roll is a customized encouragement program to boost active transportation and carpooling at schools. And in my opinion, is the solution you're looking for. I have lived in Europe and kind of have like seen the other side and know that it's possible if we create good infrastructure and good encouragement programs like this one. People will choose active transportation. So I'm excited to share this program with you because we have been rolling it for a year and we currently have 10 schools signed up. This is all of the different mascots on the walk and roll like bike. And here is a list of them. I know we're here to talk about Hidden Valley. They're coming on board at the end of this school year or the beginning of January. They will then have a very, if not already, interested population of people who will care about biking and walking because they'll be doing it every single week. And that will be very helpful for any feedback that y'all want to get. So the program is simple. I designed it for my own kids' school with the hope that it would be adopted by other kids or other elementary schools. With the point being, who cares about biking nowadays? I think 10% of people bike to school as compared to in the 90s, it was 30. And like back in the day, it was about half or more. So no one kind of. But once you start walking and rolling to school, then you will, because now your kids are doing it. And now suddenly we have adults who care. So that's actually the mindset behind this program. And the way that it works is everyone at a school is given a tag. On the backside of the tag is a barcode, and the children put the tag on their backpacks. And when they get to school in an active way or by carpooling, they get checked in at the walk and roll station once a week. We use an app called Active for Me, and the app tracks how many miles the student has done, how many trips they've done, and how much CO2 they've saved. And this is through a self-reported parent registration. We don't keep addresses or anything, but they just say how long they're going to be going and what mode of transportation they're going to go. Additionally, the app sends a text to the parents to let them know that their child came to school, and it also keeps track of their stats. This is fun. And in general, the program is like a human Fitbit. And there's programs all over the US and research to show that walk and roll programs like this are successful. But we think ours is extra successful because we have an incentive that kids like, which is charms. So every 4th trip that a child comes to school in an active way or by carpool gets checked in on walk and roll Wednesday or Friday or whatever day it is. They get one of these smiley face charms. And this is what creates the fun as well as the motivation for the program to be student centered. And therefore, then if the kid wants to get to school in an active way, now the parents are going to want to, because who changes the parents' attitudes the most? Their children. We also want it to be equal, and we recognize that not everybody can use their legs to get to school. And so maybe they can't do it for 4 times, but maybe they can do it on one of the special days. So we also provide all of the schools with 5 special charms. That's what you see on the left. And those would be like everyone who participates on the Friday before Thanksgiving, or on a winter January day, or on a rainy day gets a charm. And so this allows an on the spot like equalization for children who maybe can only do it one time. Street Smarts, we provide to the school everything that they need to make the program happen. It's about $2,500 to $3,000 worth of stuff. And that includes the tags, the Active for Me subscription, signs, cones, flags, vests, whatever they need. We've also at this point been running it for over a year. So we've really dialed in templates, promotion videos for the schools to help make sure that everybody knows that the program is happening and make it possible for the volunteers to do it as easy as possible. So some of the benefits that we've seen with this very program include a decrease of tardies and an increase of attendance, tardies up to 50% and attendance up to 2% at the schools that run the program. We also know that this decreases school traffic. This is a picture of 50 cars and 50 drivers. And typically, like for an 800-person school, you're going to have much more than 50 cars coming. But you can see if you put all of those cars in one long line and then imagined they all disappeared, how much space is suddenly created for the people who do need to drive to school. And this is where I think with Hidden Valley, for instance, when they start a program there, we will see what happens. But having a slow street, like you were talking about with Swan Lake or the Lake one, that could be a route where walkers and bikers are directed to come down to school that's not with the traffic. But like, as you're planning all of this, knowing like that it's happening would be important. We also know that well-being is affected, both mental and physical health for children, and equality and independence. So the equality piece being some kids do need to bike and walk to school, and having more people out there does make them safer. Additionally, the independence piece we've seen at all of the schools with walk and roll programs, but specifically at Pleasant Hill Elementary, where this program's been running for 4 years. We see a load of children who are now biking to school who originally the parents couldn't imagine having their kids do that. Parents, what are parents saying? We take lots of surveys with this program. They love the fact that there is a focus on active transportation, that there is kind of like a mass shift in the adults' mentality around active transportation, and it motivates to be able to say, oh, look, all these other people are doing it, so it must be normal. And they love that for themselves as well as for their kids. Additionally, kids love it, obviously, because of the charms, but they know it's good for the environment. They know that it's good for themselves. One child said, I get to hang out with my friends. So many of my friends bike to school now who didn't before. We know that's true as well because we keep lots of metrics. Principals love the program as well. They often ask, can we do it every day? I'll tell you in a minute why we don't. But the noticeable decrease in traffic and fewer kids left after school because of the independence is something that they have reported loving. Okay, so this is a chart from the original school, Pleasant Hill Elementary. Got to hang with me for a second. The orange is the first year of the program in 2022 and 2023. And the average participation number was around 120 kids. We thought that was amazing back then. That was 19% of the school population. And as you can see, the program started on week 6 and kind of gets to its height at 150 participants. And then in the winter, it goes down and then kind of comes back up and plateaus around 130, 120 participants in the spring. And you can see that pattern happening year after year. The blue year was the second year with 160 people participating on average throughout the year. And that year they got almost, I think their highest participation point was 190 kids. They dipped down in the winter, but they were well above 150 kids in the spring. And the third year of the program last year, they were hitting over 200 participants every week until November. They dipped down in the winter, plateaued out in the spring. But if you notice, the winter part for the green, the third year, never gets as low as the first year's highest numbers. Do you see what I'm saying? The program has become embedded in the school psychology and culture, and we expect that with all of the schools that are starting programs now. This is this year. So this year we have 11 schools now rolling, and the first week of school, week 1, only 1 school started. But as you go through, and the 10th week of school, those are only Martinez schools because MDUSD had the fall break. But you can see when we have everybody going together, we're hitting well over 2,000 people walking and biking and carpooling to school as a community every single week. That's a huge number. Okay, so the psychology around the program is that once a week, every week gives people an opportunity to practice. And with that, we can anticipate that they'll be doing it the other days of the week too. But are they? So this is a survey in which 40% of people said, yes, we're biking or walking to school every day, and 15% occasionally, and yes, 25% most days. So basically 20% of people are saying, no, we're only participating on walk and roll days, but 80% of people are participating more than that. Additionally, we use physical bike count at schools. Do you guys see how I changed this up for you? I tried to make it a little more interesting.
I was going to say, this is a new chart for me.
This
Thank
is a
you.
new chart. Yeah. We use physical bike counts at schools to also try and identify, because, people could say they're walking and carpooling, but they're really not. But we know that they are, and that this program is having a change because we actually count how many bikes and scooters and skateboards and roller skates are parked in the parking lot every day. So what you can see here is this year's cumulative numbers. So before walk and roll started, that's the dark red. If we add up all of the schools start counting their bike parking 1 to 3 months before the program starts. So we can use all those numbers and come up with an average. So on average, all of our schools, all of our 11 schools, they had about 100, maybe 120 bikes parked at their school. Now, as you go through the school year, you can see we're getting up to 300 bikes parked at our campuses. And if we average all these numbers together, maybe that would be easier. We can see that we're doubling those numbers. So 120 bikes before walk and roll starts at a school, at our schools together, and 237 bikes to get after the program starts. So we know it's having an impact, and we can extrapolate from that people are also walking and people are also carpooling. Here's our programs in motion. We have there John Muir Elementary with the wolf. So I'll just end by saying we're very excited about this program because we know that it's having an impact in our schools. We're excited for Hidden Valley to start it. And I think the main concern, obviously, as we go into schools, and because my job is to sell it, right? Get somebody who wants to run it at every single one of those schools. And the main concern is the safety and making sure that the kids are safe. People want to do it, but the competition with cars is the number one hiccup as we talk about this. And so if a school has 30% of its population participating, we feel that's a win. But I think as we roll out more and more programs, we know that there's way more people who are interested in actually having the program. Mount Diablo Elementary in Clayton has over 65% of their student body participating. But safety is the number one concern. Yeah, so I'll leave it there. Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
We asked all of our questions last time.
What'd you say?
Oh, so we know.
Okay, so everyone knows. So we just need to make it happen. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and I guess my question is not a question, but just a request, the same thing, Tyler, please feel free to edit this today, but we absolutely will appreciate your comments because your teams actually have kids walking and riding their bikes. And so there might be some pain points that aren't completely obvious unless you have a 10-year-old on a bicycle trying to get to school.
Totally.
So your input will be very helpful.
Well, and I am just wondering, like I said, because these schools that do have the program do have interested parents. Does anyone want the coordinator's contact information? Would that be helpful?
I wrote that down last time
Okay.
and kind of passed that along to reach out to the coordinators of all of your walk and roll programs. So I think that is already in motion and we'll probably, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Tree planting project at Hidden Valley Park. Who's that? Is that us?
That is us. So no, I know that we have, our maintenance and operation department has been working on this for some time. And I just wanted to know if there was any feedback from you all on that side before I go any further.
Nothing specific. I know we've been also working with PG&E to do some tree planting at some of the parks as well. And they'll be set up where the holes would be excavated. They're providing the trees, and then we're going to kind of garner some community support for the actual planting.
So yeah, so this is coming out of our maintenance and operation department, and we are planting trees, and so I know that like we didn't just randomly go there and start planting them. We had to have worked with somebody on that to make sure that we had permission to do that. So yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. So those types of things. So again, like, you know, like I said earlier about the field and stuff, like we just need to know about these things where, you know, you know, oftentimes we can fall into our silos where you have, you know, maybe maintenance and operation, maybe they got a grant and they got some dollars to do something, and maybe that communication didn't hit everybody. And so we want to just make sure that as it relates to Martinez, that we're you know, that we're hitting all the communications that need to take place, and if there's permits that are needed, we're covering that. And what I have here is city and PG&E joint tree planting project coming up in November, just behind Hidden Valley. Our current plan is to have holes prepped, trees delivered, and we're looking for volunteer work. A volunteer workforce for placing the trees and shoveling dirt. So those are things that, you know, we'll be working together on making sure that that happens. Yeah. And that's just info.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't know about this project at all. As I'm sure staff has worked with you, but could you give us a little bit more information? Because these are the kinds of things that people in the Martinez community would love to participate in. But because Hidden Valley is in a different school district from all the other elementary schools, there wouldn't be necessarily that like marketing and outreach that other families would probably be more than happy to participate in. Can you give us a little more information on it?
Do you want to share a little something?
But it was the information was coming soon. We've been
Yeah.
working with PG&E for several weeks on they're doing some tree planting or offering trees to mitigate some of the trees that they've taken out as part of their safety work throughout the city. And so we're working with them to do some tree selection, native trees as much as possible, and then finding locations throughout the city, various parks. I think been working with my staff and some of the maintenance crew staff to at least scope out some preliminary locations, and then before we garner a little more input for additional ones. We've heard over the years that there's a lot of interest in the Hidden Valley Park around the school and that open space. There's also been some interest in the Pine Meadow Park, and so those were some of the initial locations that were being targeted.
Yeah, and we've done work with PG&E at some of our other schools and other cities and whatnot, but just something that I wanted to make sure that our folks were being transparent and communicating and willing to help and do whatever. But it is supposed to be sometime in November, but we don't have the exact date. So just wanted to touch base on that. But that was good news. That was you know, who doesn't like planting of trees and things like that?
I was going to say, I don't know it had anything to do with PG&E, but I got invited out by the mayor of Concord because they were going to plant 50 trees over in Baldwin Park, and went out there, and a bunch of kids and family came out there, and we planted 50 trees and had a blast. So
Yeah, that's all. That's all we had. That was our kind of our only update. I just want to reiterate that Hidden Valley, although the previous principal used to always say when I first started in Mount Diablo, we're so far away, don't forget about us out here. But I've made a concerted effort to go and visit the school regularly. They invite me to their events, and it's a great school, and there's a lot of, even though you're pulling folks um, from different areas who are all kind of coming together at this school. They've created a very nice community there. And again, the teachers, families, and most notably, the students seem really engaged and happy there. So I'm glad you guys, obviously, I direct my principals to establish relationships with with their local elects. Um, I've actually, I went to one of your state of the cities as I went there with the principal, and learned a great deal about Martinez that I didn't know before, and those are relationships that we want to continue to nurture and continue to make sure are strong. So, well,
Well, I just want to recognize and shout out Principal Tosi. She's doing an excellent job, and even the prior principal as well. I've been very accessible and have enjoyed a very strong collaborative relationship with the administrators, and I've been very plugged in. Try to go to as many of the various school events as possible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get out to their trunk or treat event this year, but I have attended in the past, um, and I very much appreciate having the opportunity to get to work with them. And certainly, the next time you come out to the school, please let me know. I'd love to join with, and kind of maybe we can kind of walk around and observe some things together. I am kind of curious though, Dr. Clark, before we adjourn here tonight, like, um, are there any planned facility improvements that are in the pipeline for that school, as was referenced? That there's a very significant student population there. It just seems to be growing with every passing year. And I'm sure this happens at some of your other school sites, but that school in particular, as you said, it does draw students in from different communities, not just Martinez.
right.
So kind of, can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, has there been a bond measure of some kind
Well,
that's been
just
put
like
to help improve?
Yeah, no, just like with the tree project or any projects that we do, we have deferred maintenance that we contribute to every year. Um, our schools are on rotations for maybe a roof or maybe painting or restriping or Surrey seals, doing things, redoing the blacktop, things like that. But major renovations would come through the bond program. And so currently we're finishing out our last bond program, and I mean, I know there's an election tomorrow, but we're not on that. We're not on that ballot, but we're looking very closely at the upcoming years for another bond. But with the amount of students there, it does generate staff, it does generate funds. We're working hard to make sure that they have what they need. But many of our schools and campuses are dated and need. We have close to it. Our last facility bond, our last facility master plan identified roughly around $2 billion of needs, and yeah, and we passed a bond for, I don't know, $150 million or so. So yeah, the city manager is sitting there thinking what he could do with that. But yeah, so yeah, you're welcome. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Side with our police department, we are planning on doing a desktop exercise in 2026. And so if we can make sure that at least one or two members of school board,
Yeah.
whatever is present, that would be great. Then, sorry about that. The other item, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the open space and the maintenance agreement for that open space behind Hidden Valley Elementary. There are a couple of those agreements at various schools. Love to talk with you all about a little bit more about what it is, what you own, what the city owns, because I think from at least a resident perspective, you can't tell that there's necessarily any difference. But based on kind of what some of the parents are saying, it's clear that there's sort of like a school specific area. Would love to talk about that. And then lastly, I feel very strongly about youth participation at the government level. And I have not struck out every time, but have consistently struck out in trying to attract high school students to apply to our commissions. So far, even though I've sent notifications to College Park and Alhambra High School and both superintendents and have reached out, I've only ever gotten one application, and I immediately appointed her to our Parks and Rec Commission. So I just want to reiterate that every spring in about April, we identify how many vacancies we're going to have. And right now, I don't have a youth commission that's specific for youth issues, but I always am interested in having anyone in the 18 to 24 range occupy one of those seats. So like I said, if anyone were to ever apply, I would absolutely prioritize them for some of these. And normally they're 4-year appointments. I recognize that if you are a senior in high school and you want to do this, you're also likely going to be trying to apply for colleges, not locally, not necessarily, but probably. And so there's no commitment beyond the 1 year if you can't serve more than 1 year. So I will be reaching out to you, but I would love to talk about youth participation in ways that we can better get them involved in Martinez. I think, I don't know how you feel, but we regularly are told that Martinez is a one high school town, and we know that that's not true. So I would love to get more folks from College Park engaged at the local level.
And please, if there is a tabletop exercise or anything like that, please reach out to me before I mean, it was a couple years ago when we had our last meeting. I won't want to wait if that were taking place. So absolutely. Thank you.
No, I just to piggyback on what the mayor said. It is true. It's like there's this common perception that we are a one high school town, and I always have to remind people it's like no, almost a third of our student population is is enrolled in Mount Diablo Unified. They go to Valley View and they go to Pleasant College Park, which I know might seem kind of strange to some folks in our city, but it's true. And I I represent a lot of those neighborhoods, so I think that would be helpful. One other item, since we're on the topic of future agenda items, I'm not sure if you all are familiar, but there is actually a community garden that is immediately adjacent to Hidden Valley Elementary. It's a city-owned, it's a city-owned community garden. It's immediately adjacent. My understanding is that in the past, at least, the school has been involved in some capacity. I think maybe one of the teachers there has had an arrangement with some of the volunteers who maintain that garden. It might be nice to kind of get an update in terms of what of the garden itself, because that has come up periodically from time to time. And I know that there is an interest to strengthen that partnership with the school. And it's kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. And so I'd just like to kind of get a good handle in terms of, um, you know, of that,
Yeah.
the garden, and to kind of see how we can strengthen the partnership between the school and the city. Because it's a really, really nice garden.
Okay.
So I just wanted to flag that for everyone. So that might be a nice thing to learn a little bit more about. Thanks.
Well, thank you all.
That
Yeah.
concludes our meeting, but thank you so much for
Thank you.
reaching out to us, and sounds like we'll be talking again in the future. Look.